Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to GPVWC. We're here for the first race of round 6 of the Career Ladders season. Of course, starting us off is Formula Sprint 2. I'm Tom Dillon, and alongside me for this very wet race this evening is Jan Granqvist. And Jan, first time we've run these cars in the wet since this series has been called Formula Sprint 2. Very unique challenge for the drivers today.
Yes, hello. It's a great time to be here and watch as these cars navigate the damp circuit of the Nürburgring GP. And yeah, it's going to be yet another unique challenge this time around, coming from the streets of Jeddah last time. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this.
And well, Jeddah was a very interesting race. I don't suppose it would be raining there for quite a while. It's 5.148 kilometers, this circuit length, a very different circuit to Jeddah. Obviously this one is a little bit slower. Jeddah's very fast, and obviously the walls leave little margin for error, but when you've got the wet adding that extra factor, I mean, you know, particularly with how R Factor 2 deals with the weather, there's a lot of standing water that can develop on the circuit. You really have to be able to spot that in the car. I mean, this is really just as much of a challenge.
Yeah, and you know, this is also makes it even harder, considering this is very much a classic style of track where you've got runoff, but it's mostly occupied by very slippery grass and then gravel trap on the outside. So you're very much in a bad position if you find yourself outside of the white lines.
So Sever Panasenko is one of the first to cross the line to start his first flying lap of the evening, and watch how delicate this is going to be down into turn 1, just about catchy slide of the car, and really sliding is going to be the order of the day. I mean, already on R Factor 2 you've got a simulation where sliding is very much rewarded, and you know, the wet circuit just adds to that. But Sever here looking very comfortable on this lap so far. I mean, we don't think he's going to be towards the pointy end of the field. I think Luke Mitchell, championship leader at the moment, is where we'd expect to see that sort of the higher reaches. But Sever here is looking very calm in that car.
Yeah, certainly. Luke Mitchell is one to look out for yet again. But as we're watching Sever Panasenko, a little bit of a twitch over the slippery curves out there on the outside. But yeah, it's a very calm and collected lap so far. And as I've been watching these cars throughout practice, it's been looking very, very, very tricky. So yeah, another slide from Sever. But as long as you can keep the car within the tarmac here, you should be able to find yourself a decent enough time. But yeah, it's very difficult for just about everyone.
Massive, almost opposite lock through the Schumacher S's. It isn't going to be a purple second sector for Sever Panasenko. In fact, that goes to Bobby Vakanov, who has gone 50.2, immediately taken over by Tom Parker. Actually, this little battle for your first lap time to be in, and which one, of course, is going to be the fastest. Here's Tom Parker up through the final chicane. Now we'll see if he can keep the car delicately poised through here, not wanting to run too much of the curb on the inside there. Looks like he's got away with it, Tom. Now one more corner to go out to the left-hand side of the track, and no car really taking the wet line at the moment. Everyone comfortable with the regular racing line. Tom Parker here, will he go faster than Bobby Vakanov? It looks like he will not. Third for Tom Parker, and he goes 1/10 off of Michael Tuomala's fastest lap time of a 1:58.1. So he was faster than Bobby, but obviously a little bit slower than Michael Tuomala, or Noah Tuomela, I should say. I apologise, who has gone onto pole position.
Yeah, look at that. The gaps are actually really close here, looking at the top four especially. Only a tenth separating those four just about now. But yeah, very interesting seeing the first times hitting the boards. And Tom Parker on another flying lap, as most people will probably be doing with the rainy session. You just want to be on the track as much as you possibly can, and potentially even have a slightly heavier car than you'd normally run into a qualifying session, just so you can keep the car running. And Tom Parker with a purple first sector, looking neat and tidy so far.
Well, right on board with him as he goes up through the Schumacher S's. You can see already there's a little bit of a dry line forming. The rain isn't really coming down as hard as we would expect. I think we're very much expecting this to get wetter as the rain comes down later on, but right now we're going to go through a period of drying for a moment, it appears. I can't really tell if it's raining with this camera angle. I think it is slightly.
It is still raining, yeah.
There's up through sector 2 he goes, but either way there is a couple of corners here. It looks drier than others. Tom Parker will keep to the right hand side up through the chicane then. Still purple in at sector 2, picks out the 100-meter board, dips it into running pretty much all of the curve. Very aggressive there, and Parker having to fight this car all the way through. Now he goes through the final corner. It's a right-hander, and he's understeering practically all the way through. Keeps the car nice and poised. Will it be the fastest lap time for Tom Parker as he crosses the line? It looks like it will be. 1:57.6 is a very impressive lap indeed. And I should mention that Luke Mitchell hasn't actually set a lap time yet.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there he goes. Onto pole position for the time being, 1:57.4. I mean, R Factor 2's got a new-ish weather system, Jan. have you had much experience with it? And if so, what's the sort of difference to the old one?
Absolutely not. I do not have any more info on that than you would. So, yeah, I'm not the best person to be asked that question. I'm sorry.
And, well, I haven't either, which is why I asked. But I do know there's a new one, at least. I think they've gone from the old 0 to 100% system, and now they've got sort of very wets, and just there's no number to it, basically. Here's Luke Mitchell then, purple. Again, in the first sector, going for those couple of laps, as we mentioned. He slides the car all the way through. He's taking a little bit of a wet line through that corner and slides it all the way to the exit as well. It looks very stylish. Some would argue it's not the fastest. Here he goes now through the Schumacher S's. It's a quick left-right. And he's, again, just about okay with that one. So difficult to get a lap in these conditions all the way onto the curb. You can see how much it upsets the car of Luke Mitchell, who leads the championship at the moment by about 60 points, 50 points to be exact, I should say. He's yellow in the second sector, so this might not be as good of a lap for Luke Mitchell as he was perhaps hoping for. But is this the key here? Just keeping out on the circuit and making sure you're not in the pits, because obviously if the track is going to change at any point in the session, I say as Luke Mitchell goes into the pits, if the track is going to change at any point in the session, then you want to be out there doing laps on it to allow it to change, because realistically, degradation of these rain tyres should not be a factor.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. I mean, obviously you don't want to be stuck out there too long, as once the conditions hit where you can set the absolute best time of the session, you don't want to be at a disadvantage to the others potentially. So it's really just wow, as we see Roy Seifert having it very wrong through the final corner as he was going for an improvement there. But yeah, it is, as you say, you want to stay out there, but at the same time, you do want to sort of time it so that you're also on relatively fresh rubber as you hit those optimal conditions.
Here's Tom Parker, purple in Sector 1. We do see this often, actually, that Luke Mitchell hasn't got very good Sector 1s. It's almost the theme of Formula Sprint 2, and then you get into Sector 2 and 3, and all of a sudden he just pulls away from everyone. But Tom Parker here is, if I'm not mistaken, he's a former FS2 champion. I know he races up in the echelons of the career ladder. He's definitely not a full-time driver for this side, this Scuderia Cap Clay Cup. I'm not quite sure to the specifics of Tom Parker's GPVWC career, but he always seems to be there and thereabouts, and now trying to challenge Luke Mitchell. And there is a huge slide. He just about holds onto the car. That might not do much for his qualifying lap, but that is a mighty, mighty save from Tom Parker.
Yeah, not ideal for his lap, but at least he still kept it on the tarmac as he goes over the grass there and has to fly over the second curb of the NGK chicane, and decides to come into the pit for a new set of rubber for the final 5 minutes of qualifying, potentially.
SL2 Tom Parker, by the way, so far this season. I say that he's actually raced there once, twice. It was a 13th and a DNF. So he's around and about GPVWC is my point, and is coming down into FS2 for this round. Oh, McGougy said, when was he champ? I'm not too sure. I think he's won some championship in GPVWC. Tom Parker, I don't know which one. Here goes Turo Mellor, goes into third position. He's had pretty decent wet pace so far this weekend, as down into turn 1 he goes. Do you think Parker or Turo Mellor, for that matter, Jan, here as we see Matthews on a lap at the moment on the back of his slightly controversial podium in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, but do you see someone being a challenge to Mitchell's pole position?
So far, Parker seems to have that potential in him. Looking at him, he's been setting a couple of those purple sectors. He just hasn't got that lap in. But yeah, it's going to be a very, very tricky fight between Mitchell and Parker, potentially. I think these two are very closely matched on pace. Formella potentially as well, but as it stands, actually, he's gone purple in the first sector, so he might be coming up with something great just here.
Here he goes then, looking through Sector 2 right now, 1/10 up on Luke Mitchell's lap time. The rain is still coming down here, as we mentioned earlier, but looks right now like the track is virtually staying the same. There's not a great deal of evolution. Turamella looks perfectly clean through the Schumacher S's. Now he has to set herself up for the next left-hander, pick out about the 50-meter ball, dip the car in, try and make sure that it just sticks in these very changeable conditions. R-Factor 2 is one of those simulations that really does get the expression of how changeable conditions can be in real-life racing. However, it's not a great second sector for Noah Turamella. He's got to find something rather special into this final couple of corners. Again, we'll pick out about the 100 board, keep it easy on the curves. You don't want to be hitting those massive sausage curves as you go on through, and eventually
I think he's lost just about too much time in the middle sector there.
Yeah, as perhaps we would have expected, because it's Luke Mitchell, I should say, actually, to hold on to that point for a moment.
Look at those sector times.
It is a huge improvement. Will he go further into pole position? He will. Extend his advantage for 9/10 of a second. David Junt, in the meantime, he's gone into second himself.
I think with the track conditions are improving rapidly right now, just looking at how much these improvements are coming in. And yeah, David Junt splitting the field between Mitchell and himself with the about half a second to Mitchell and then half a second behind him.
As Luca Thylin is not on a great lap, it has to be said, so we'll switch over to Tommy Kuvian, who just started his next flying laps. It's 30th and last at the moment. That would suggest he hasn't set a time just yet. No, he has 32 cars on the grid. He's actually the last of the cars to have set a lap time. It was a 2 minutes dead, so safe to say not set a really representative lap time just yet, as Tommy, noted he goes up through the next left-hander, just needs to get something onto the board here, and chances are he'll gain a couple of positions, but that is a huge slide. He regains the car very nicely indeed, but it won't be ideal for him. 1 minute and 35 to go. Chances he'll get maybe one more lap in after this one, but this is pressure on right now for Tommy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's green in the first sector, but look at that. It's already 1.3 seconds off the current pole position time, so it's not going to be a great improvement either way, unless he can find something magical into the second and third sector. But definitely he'll want to be getting out of that 30th position.
Probably going to have to be 2 back-to-back laps here. Luke Mitchell isn't improving, though he's only a 10th off in the second sector, so that will balance out this lap time for him. It will all be about this third sector. Through the final corner he goes. Luke Mitchell, championship leader at the moment, looking to practically secure yet another pole position in FS2. Here he goes up to the line, 56.6 to beat. He goes across the line. It's a 56.697. So just about off of his own lap time. Noah Turamella, who has shown fine pace so far this evening, is on his final flying lap now. There he goes, crossing the line. David Junt, I believe, is on a flying lap as well, as will Tom Parker be in just a few moments' time. This is about a 20-second shootout, a one-lap shootout for pole position.
Yes, definitely. And Noah Turamella would have timed this perfectly now, as he's got completely fresh rubbers for this one and final attempt against all the others, as the track seems to be at its best right now. So we're going to see just how much Noah Turamella can potentially improve going into this final attempt.
Watching for that Sector 1, Roy Seifert in the meantime went into third position. He did get purple in the final sector, but that was not enough to beat Luke Mitchell's time at the moment. The Sector 1 for David Junt is good, not good enough. Luke Mitchell hasn't improved in Sector 1 either. Roy Seifert has gone for another lap, 36.9 in the first sector. So again, he's not quite on Luke Mitchell's pace. Noah Turamella needs a good Sector 2 here in order to get onto Luke Mitchell's pace once again. He's got to find about 3 more tenths in this lap time in order to go and challenge for that pole position. We'll keep you updated in Sector 2 times as they come in as well, of course. Here goes Turamella through the next right-hander, and we'll wait to see what that Sector 2 time is.
Junt with the purple first sector.
In the first sector. Second sector's not much better though, Jan.
Yeah, it's gonna be tight. It's gonna be tight, but it's looking good for David Junt so far, who is 4 tenths behind Luke Mitchell. If he can set this lap without any further complications, he'll be pretty much securing that second spot.
he goes.
From the
He
looks
does
of things.
improve. Only slightly though, 56.9. Not enough for Luke Mitchell, who goes into the pits, not improving on his final lap. So it's Roy Seifert, who hasn't improved in the second sector, on for pole position. Tuamela goes 5th. That's an improvement from him. Perhaps not an improvement enough though, so it lies on Roy Seifert really. Here's Magnus Oggenhaug finally getting himself into a permanent seat. Will go into 6th position. A huge jump for the Hutt Performance Engineering car. He goes right alongside his teammate in Dan Hutt in 6th position, who goes 7th, Dan Hutt, I should say. In the meantime, we're just waiting for Seifert's final lap, and he crosses the line. Not good enough either. So, there you go then. It's Luke Mitchell who is on pole position, yeah.
Yes, what a qualifying we had with the, again, Luke Mitchell, quite a dominant performance, but David Yunt, a little surprise over there, coming in very hot in his final few attempts, and yeah, securing a front row position going into the race.
He's super sub, isn't he, David Yunt? As is Tom Parker, actually, who goes 4th in the end. I think that just goes to show how this grid has been mixed up, though, Jan. I think this goes to show how unpredictable a wet qualifying can be, particularly with the timing of when you have to set your laps. We'll get your results for you in a moment. As Ed Hunter, welcome to the chat, says, weather reminds me of today's weather where I live, thunder and lightning. Very, very frightening indeed. Jan, take us through the results.
All right, so we got Luke Mitchell for pole position for this round, and David Yunt starting alongside him in P2, with Roy Seifert P3 and Tom Parker in P4. Noah Tuamela in P5, with Magnus Oggenhaug in P6, Dan Hutt in P7, Scott Mitchell-Norman P8, Maxime Beaulieu in P9, with Justin van der Snissen rounding up the top 10. In P11, we've got Patrick Magnussen, with P12, Massimiliano Riboli and Bobby Vakinov in P13, Scott Sovic in 14th, with Jassa Lahtinen in P15. Matthias Pischan in P16, Lucas Thiel in P17, and Dan Hayek in P18, with Bradley Sellers in P19 and Florian Hazer in P20. Sever Panasenko in P21, with Craig Patterson in P22, Joran Dix in 23rd, with Yaroslav Hajek in P24, Dominic Schlabon in P25, Davida Zanini in P26, Brandon Robert in P27, Scott Morris in P28, Luca Tiziano in 29th, with Dominic Goenvoden in 30th position. Louis Hartley and Mihailo Vicentievich rounding off the final rows of the grid. And that's it for the qualifying results.
Indeed, and well, we've got a 10-minute warm-up session now before we join you for the second, the second of the sessions is what I was trying to say, and obviously the first of the races. 15 laps ahead of us at the Nürburgring. We'll see you in about 10 minutes time. Welcome back, everybody, to GPVWC and Formula Sprint 2. We're here for race 1 at, once again, the very wet Nürburgring circuit in Nürburg, Germany. You're looking right now one of the King's racing cars and getting it very wrong indeed down into turn 1 at the end of this warm-up session before we get into 15 laps of this race. And, well, what an enthralling 30 minutes or so it is going to be. An enthralling 30 minutes, actually, we should say, as of course we have 2 races here. It is Luke Mitchell on pole, Jan. And, you know, form would dictate, considering that there are only 2 races this season that he's failed to get, or 2 rounds this season where he's failed to get a victory. Logic would dictate Luke Mitchell is going to walk away with this, but in the wet, you just never know, do you?
Yeah, absolutely not. It could be anyone's race. That's to be expected from harsh conditions such as these. And you know, this kind of a rain with this certain track brings me back to the year 2007, of when certain events transpired and a lot of cars ended up missing turn one, and hopefully we won't see such things happening today, but you never know.
Yes, and well, that event was actually Maury Walker's last ever Formula One commentary for the BBC.
Ah, yes.
But here at well, I mean, quite a few years later. I was just 1 year old when that event took place, but quite a few years later here for FS2. And as I said, the first Formula Sprint 2, technically speaking, the first ever wet Formula Sprint 2 race. Is we haven't had one since this series has been called Formula Sprint 2. Obviously, it used to be Formula Challenge. We were talking in the green room, actually. I said that the last one I can remember was Australia 2020, where they had that wet turn one. It was quite a funny gif made of it, as all the cars sort of, well, it went about as well as you would have expected, but it's going to be an interesting challenge, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And, well, we're just waiting for this grid to form up and the formation lap to start. There is the session finally changing over, and I'm glad these guys have got red sort of marks on the track to show them where their boxes are, because I don't think I'd be able to find my pit box in the 3 different grids that are on one circuit there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Some people tend to use what's called the eSpot settings, where they turn down the graphics as much as possible in order to see as much as possible of the track. But yeah, again, I think as of today on R Factor 2, I think it's more balanced these days, where you're not so much of a disadvantage if you do want to turn up the graphics to something more picturesque.
Yes, and I think the main concern here in the wet is that if you have your graphics set too low, you won't be able to see any of the any standing water collect on the track, and it is a serious concern on this game. You know, I've had times, particularly in endurance, where I've seen people crash out because they couldn't see the standing water. So someone said, "Don't talk about Australia 2020, please. It still hurts." Anyway, yeah, take us through the grid.
Yes, so here we go with the pole man, Luke Mitchell, leading the grid as we wait for the graphics to show up. There we go. And Luke Mitchell in pole position with David Yunt sharing that front row with Roy Seifert in P3 and Tom Parker in P4. Noah Tuomala in P5 with Magnus Ockenhog in P6 with Dan Hutt, his teammate, in P7 and Scott Mitchell-Malm in P8. Maxime Ballou in P9 with Justin van der Smissen running out the top 10. Patrikur Magnusson in P11 and Massimiliano Riboli in P12. With Bobby Kinov in P13 and Scott Sowick in P14. Mateusz Piszczan in P15 with Lucas Thielen in P16. Bradley Sellers in P17 with Florian Hauser in P18, Seva Panasenko P19 with Craig Patterson in P20. Jan Dix in P21 with Jaroslav Hayek in P22, Dominik Schlapon in P23, Davide Zanini in P24. Brandon Robert in P25 with Luca Tizano in P26, Tomi Koivunen in P27 with Mihailo Vicentievich in P28. Scott Morris in P29 with Louis Hartley in P30 and Jassa Lahtinen in P31, rounding off the whole grid.
Yes, we have lost someone on the grid in the time it's taken to do the warm-up session. I can't see by sight who that is. My fifth.
It's very difficult to spot one car out of such a huge grid.
By sight, I think it might be Dan Hayek, who I know was experiencing some internet issues throughout the course of the day. So I haven't received a message from him about that, but that wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. And in fact, I can see that he's offline on Discord, so I suppose it might be Dan Hayek. Anyway, ahead of this race start, Jan, I'll ask you for your top 3 predictions.
Okay, hear me out on this one. David Junt, P1, Noah Tormela, P2, Luke Mitchell, P3. I know this is crazy, but you gotta throw some spice in with these predictions.
With his Finnish tinted glasses, I think that the grid is about to line up. 31st position, actually slightly on a slant there, but it's Luke Mitchell on the outside line, David Junt for priority 1 on that inside line as we go down into turn 1. It's lights out and away we go. Quick light indeed. I didn't even see the lights, but Luke Mitchell gets a very good start indeed. He's down into turn 1. Right alongside him is David Junt. They're going to have a battle of the late breakers that the car on the outside invites himself to as well. David Junt into turn 1 gets the lead of the race off of Luke Mitchell. Everyone else crawling around this racetrack as we go now up into turn 2. Still side by side with Tuamela now. Luke Mitchell trying around the outside is Noah Tuamela. It's Royce Seifert in the background. He's trying to make up whatever positions he can, but Luke Mitchell and Tuamela still running 2 by 2 as they get finally into turn 4. Mitchell forced all the way almost onto the grass, and they make contact as well. It's all there at the moment, and Seifert looks around the outside. There's a little bit of a skirmish going on further behind that may have resulted in a spinner, we think, but Tuamela gets that position off of Luke Mitchell. And I'm starting to think, Jan Granqvist, that you don't seem as silly as you maybe were suggesting.
I did not certainly expect it to go so perfectly to my predictions, at least from judging from the race start, but here we are. And actually also, I was spectating that race start incident very closely by pure coincidence. It happened to be Magnus Ockenhog running side by side with one of the Scuderia Cap Clay cars. I'm not quite sure which one. I think it's Tom Parker, and just got squeezed out as he tried to nab the apex off of Tom Parker, and they managed to clip each other, Magnus's front wing against Tom Parker's rear, and that caused a whole heap of chaos behind the grid, and Magnus Ockenhog is now all the way down in P26 after that awesome qualifying.
Indeed, and there's further skirmishes going on, as I was getting confirmation from Dan actually what happened there. Here's his teammate Matheus Pishkan trying to go around the outside of Bradley Sellers, who is very, as I always say when he joins us for FS2. Oh no, this one is
there's more contact.
Bradley Sellers for a moment. It was Florian Hasse into the wall and not out of the race. He'll be able to continue going here, but definitely a dampener on his day if the rain hadn't already achieved that feat. Here though, here's Jesse Latinen down the inside. He's had a lightning start. He started 32nd and he's already up to 21st in the space of a lap, so he's got to go around the outside now to hold on to that 21st position. It's Tommy Kuvian who is battling, and Kuvian has a huge slide.
Huge moment there, but managed to keep it all safe and tidy, and didn't even lose any extra positions there, so well done from them.
Roy Seifert now has turned his attention on championship leader Luke Mitchell. 60 points the gap between the two of them at the moment, 61 to be exact, and Seifert knows after a trio of 6th place finishes over the last couple of races, knows he's got a chance to chip into this championship lead of his main championship rival, but at the moment he's not quite able to do so, as Luke Mitchell seems to have the measure of him, and slides like that aren't going to help Roy Seifert one bit.
Yeah, you see though, Luke Mitchell hasn't exactly been pressuring Noah Tormela as much as I would have expected, so either he's been making a mistake or something has happened to his pace, as Roy Seifert is very much the one piling on the pressure.
He is at the moment. Here's Scott Morris for Team RNG. I'm sure they've got a new colour scheme for this round, because I certainly don't recall them racing in blue and white before. But anyway, he's trying to make up for 18th. They were blue and white apparently. They must have got a new livery or something, because I don't recall seeing that one in particular. But anyway,
something about it seems new.
Something about it seems new, and down the inside there is going Florian Hasse, trying to make up for lost time, but the effect of that is that he's now being put under pressure by the other Team RNG car. David Junt has got the fastest lap of the race. There goes Magnus Ockenhaug down the inside into 22nd position. That was a fine move for the Hutt's Performance Engineering car. Now Tom Parker is overtaken by Dan Hutt himself down into turn 1, and that is 6th position for Dan Hutt. And Tom Parker, who felt he had the pace to win this race, you suspect is having his day turn a little bit miserable. He's still got a chance here for this 6th position. There he goes, turning round, and that is very miserable indeed for Tom Parker, who is going to see virtually all of the field dream past his vision. That was
I think that was a very much a similar type of moment, except this is one corner prior as to what happened on lap 1 between him and Magnus.
As Ed Hunter says, the RNG car looks unfamiliar because you missed 2 races, Tom. Well, there we go. That might be the how it is then. As we look at Tom Parker, who's rejoining 23rd position, under a little bit of pressure from one of the red vent cars, actually, as he goes through trying to make what he can of the start of this race. That's Jon Dix that he's being under pressured by. He's being pressured by Jan. It's an incident with Luca Giussano that we're looking at. Oh no, I'm hearing, sorry, from the producer there. There we go. Here is the incident. This is the turn 1 incident you were talking about.
Absolutely. So here we see Magnus tries to grab the curb there as he is pretty much forced to take it, and there you see big spin, and a few cars they're trying to navigate their way through as there's poor visibility, and that's what happens, unfortunately, in these conditions. This is now the incident with Tom Parker that just happened, and just about takes the apex there, and this time he gets clipped himself and is now facing the wrong way.
Yes, and there you go then. Tom Parker having a very frustrating day indeed. I do love the RNG car taking the outside line there, slightly unusually to avoid Tom Parker. All was okay in the end. This is Brandon Roberts having a spin of his own, and once you get onto that sort of...
They were side by side through the chicane there.
Yeah, but I think he'd already lost it, and he was onto it. The camera will make it look weird. Once you get onto that sort of disc curve, you're basically out of control of the car. It is really such an unpredictable curve to go over. This is Dominic Slabon having an incident with that RNG car, and I said...
Same incident.
Yeah, that RNG car as well had gone right to the outside in order to avoid Tom Parker, so I wonder maybe if that was sort of unsighted Dominic, or he tried to see that he was clear. We've got a lot of incidents as well that we're trying to get through. Here's Davide Zanini.
Oh, and a snap of oversteer to the other side, and that's his front wing gone, unfortunately for him.
And sounds like, according to Ed, Mitchell Marm hit Parker as well. This is Jesse Latinen. He was trying to... Oh, there you go. After a horrible, horrible start, he's just lit up the rears. After an incredible start, I should say, rather, he's lit up the rears and gone around. Yeah, I think he went from 31st to 21st and now back down to 26th. This is Tommy Cuvey, and we've barely got to look at any of the racing because there's so many incidents going on. This is... Well, it's it's totally looking treacherous.
Absolutely. It seems very easy to do with this car, just lighting up the rears or going into a braking zone slightly too hot, and the rear just seems to want to face the wrong way.
This is Magnus Ockenhaupt. He's trying to set up a move for P17. It's on Florian Assa. Around the outside he goes.
Oh, trying to switch back.
And in the end, he almost loses the car. It was so
very
close
twitchy.
For Magnus Ockenhaupt. No DRS, of course, in this race, is well, at least theoretically so, because we're in wet conditions. This game sometimes has a mind of its own, so I wouldn't be surprised if we suddenly had DRS enabled at any point, but it looks like it's working at the moment, and Magnus Ockenhaupt has got a great deal of slipstream down into turn 1. Will he go for a lunge? No. Even in the wet, where braking zones are increased by that much, you don't want to take that risk. As we see Justin van der Smissen trying to attack Dan Hunt now into 6th position. This is what this is battling for, I should say. 6th position, 32 per second separating the two of them. It's the BMS Sonedit's car, though, who looks rather the racier of the two, and might just set him up for a move into this hairpin if he can just about get the run. We'll wait and see. Van der Smissen definitely thought about it. Just had to stay
Very
behind
close.
the end. He's twitching all the way through.
Yeah, it's a typical rain driving here. You're right behind the car that you're trying to overtake, but you just can't seem to figure out where to place your car, because, you know, once you've committed to something, there's no going back in these conditions. You can try and brake as late as you might, but then you're just gonna have to live with it. You cannot back out from such moves anymore, and you're just sort of helpless until you've faced the apex of the corner.
And well, Van der Smissen is probably going to have to wait until this next straight if he's going to make a move. Here he goes, getting a good exit out of the chicane. There's about 18 different layouts of this Nürburgring circuit. Now through the final corner he goes, just looking to get that better exit. 10 laps to go is the call from race control, and Van der Smissen gets the power down very nicely indeed. That being said, it looks like Dan Hunter's got a little bit of a better exit than him, and Van der Smissen has to wait once more. There is 3.7 seconds from second place to the leader. Luke Mitchell hasn't got the best race pace in the wet, and there goes Van der Smissen round. And that just shows how you can never get into a rhythm in these conditions.
Yeah, seems like he had quite a decent gap behind him though, so not too many positions lost, but certainly a huge chunk of time down the drain with that one.
Well, more yellow flags flying. This is a battle for 20th position. It's Hayek at the top of it. One of our two Hayeks on the grid today. Well, not in this particular race, as Dan Hayek got a few issues with his game before getting into it. But this one is Yaroslav Hayek, and he's holding on to that 20th position rather nicely at the moment. It's perhaps Dominic Schlabon who is looking the raciest of them all. He's trying to get himself up into 23rd position. Under pressure himself, though, from the 25th place car of Scott Morris and Team RNG. And in fact, the two Team RNG cars. This is a very enthralling little scrap.
Yes, it is a very tightly bound train at the moment, and it's the I've forgotten the name of this team. What's the ST Racing? That's it. It's the pair of the ST Racing teams fighting. As we just switched camera.
Yeah, there's a battle for second. It's Luke Mitchell and Noah Tuamela. Luke Mitchell has finally called up to Noah Tuamela, who has been holding on to that second position nicely throughout the course of this race. Though right now, Luke Mitchell has finally woken up and found a little bit of race pace in the wet. Here he goes, looking down into turn one. He's got a new sim rig, Luke Mitchell, for this weekend. He was telling me a couple of days ago, and that looks like a dive bomb from Luke Mitchell. There he goes, all the way late on the brakes, down the inside. He's not quite able to get the position, but now forces his opponent to defend the inside in his next corner, looking for the cutback. Maybe Luke Mitchell down the inside into the next corner, defending very late is Noah Tuamela. Wants this second position, you can sense it, and Luke Mitchell has got no answer to that kind of defensive driving at the moment, but he's still going to try and force the issue. Here they go, down into the next left-hander. Mitchell looks to the inside once more, and again, Noah Tuamela holds on to that second position.
You've got to be really smart now with how you place your car against the car in front of you. You see Luke Mitchell constantly eyeing out potentially that dive, but then sort of retreating and then looking for a potential switchback. It's just wherever you can potentially try and upset your opponent. As there we see it. We see Tuamela just blinking for a second, and that's Mitchell's cue to go on the aggressive, and he's now in P2 with Tuamela now looking at the back of Luke Mitchell's car.
Probably the best Luke Mitchell's going to get out of this race. The pole sitter into second position, and David Junt has just flown away with his 5.4 seconds, I should say, rather, in the lead of the race, as we'll hit lap 8 as he takes the line next time by. I think producers looking for another battle going on the circuit right now, but this does seem to be the most prominent of them. I will give a little shout out to my own driver, Matthews Pishkan, who's doing very well up into 13th position, and as Ed Hunter says, Scott Mitchell Marmer has actually got the highest averaging finishing position on this grid at 3 from third, I should say, from his 4 races so far in this season. He's managed to get himself up to 7th position, a couple of free positions as well, as people have been spinning around him. This is Jorn Dix of Red Ben Racing, who aren't doing much for their own team's championship charge at the moment, with one of their drivers out of the points. Here is a battle, here is a move for Justin van der Smissen on Scott Mitchell Marm. Mitchell Marm defends the inside. He might have overcooked it down into turn 1. I think he has. ever so slightly, won't allow Van der
He's
Smith
got
on
it
the switch
perfect.
back. Here he goes around the outside. And you were saying, yeah?
Yeah, I'm sorry. With this allergy, I was just about to sneeze, but then I just wasn't. So, yeah, sorry for all these slight pauses that I have with the commentary.
It's okay. No, as someone who has commentated with hay fever a lot over the last few years, I know how it feels. But anyway, we'll press on in this race. I actually thought you were trying to say something, which is why. But anyway, here's Jorn Dix trying to get up into 19th position. This is over Jaroslav Hayek. Down the inside he goes, and he's going to have to be so late on the brakes, and that is that position for Jorn Dix. Getting worse for the academy driver though, as around the outside no goes Patrick Magnusson, and up into 20th position. Jaroslav Hayek losing 2 positions in 2 corners. I can hear Jan reaching for the tissue box as well, so I'll give him a moment to sort out the allergies, and then we'll press on. But this is a further battle. This is the other Kings Racing car, Bradley Sellers, on his own little nice run through the field at the moment, and there you go, fucking out into the wall. And was there contact there, Jan? You saw it?
I don't think there was any contact there. I think he just simply lost it on his own, as we've been seeing throughout these 9 laps that we've had of racing. People just struggling to keep the car straight, no matter where you are. Yeah, there you go. Again, the rain for you. You literally put the throttle on a little bit too early, and all of a sudden you go around. And the issue is as well, if you're not using a particularly high quality wheel, it can actually be quite difficult to catch slides. I have been using a Thrustmaster for pretty much my entire sim race. And I switched to a direct drive the other day, and actually the difference is so noticeable, particularly on pedals as well as this time. There you go. That was just him losing the car, wasn't it? And my point is that it can be so difficult to regain slides like that. Yeah, that's actually a very hot topic nowadays in the sim racing community with I think especially with these higher end simulations such as R Factor 2, you definitely gain a lot with higher end sim racing gear, and especially as mentioned, as we see Craig Patterson's replay of him losing the car and doing a few more donuts on the grass, which isn't exactly helping his race, and as he's decided to retire after that one. But yeah, as I was saying about the director, and that's a big one actually.
That's Tazano. That's actually the teammates in the same place.
Wow.
We're looking at.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for the Scuderia Freccianera team. And as we're going through a whole heap of these replays at the moment, Halovic and Tievich, he takes the apex, but there's a car still to the inside, and we've been seeing this, just like with Tom Parker and Magnus Ockenhog. This has happened already before, and seems to be history repeating itself, just with different drivers. Yes. And yeah, just to return to that direct drive topic, it absolutely is a massive help if you have a wheel that can deliver that sort of feedback just instantaneously. You can absolutely recover from spins, oversteer moments so much quicker if you've got better sim racing gear.
There goes Tom Parker down the inside. He's looking at Florian Hasse, and Hasse does very, very well indeed to hold on to that position. Now Tom Parker back down the inside. Will he get the better of the braking performance? It will be a slightly wetter part of the racetrack down there. There he goes. It's huge dive on the brakes, and Tom Parker gets to the apex first, and most importantly gets that position. It's not over Florian Hasse though. He's now got to find himself under a little bit more pressure, and well, he's able to hold on to it at the moment. 16th position for Florian Hasse, and now Tom Parker moves himself up into reverse grid contention. I can tell you now, if Tom Parker gets onto pole position for the next race, I think he'll run away with it.
Yeah, he's definitely shown the pace, and he's just been a bit unfortunate with the incidents at the start of the race. But yeah, I definitely agree with you there. He's definitely shown the pace of the duo of Yunt and Mitchell, who are now leading the race. I think Parker is very much on par with them, and if he gets the reverse grid pole, he'll definitely have the keys all open to him for a potential race 2 win.
Yes, indeed, and this is the battle for the podium. Noah Tuomela is under pressure from Roy Seifert, who's looking to return to the podium after a brief spell of results out of it. There he goes down the inside into the chicane. He's got to get a lot of braking performance out of that car, and it's onto the curb.
Wide.
Well, Noah Tuomela is forced wide indeed, Jan, you're right, and Roy Seifert gets up into third position. 5 laps remaining is the call. That is a, well, I'm going to say fine move from Roy Seifert. I don't think really there was much place for Tuomela to go, but if he is to get this podium today, that is his first podium actually since round 2 in Bahrain.
Yeah, I'd say with the GPV rules though, you do have to leave a cars with the space to the white line, as far as I'm informed. So it is potentially reportable, but at the same time, I do view it as clean racing. In the POV of Roy Seifert, he had already committed to that move going into the braking zone, so he could absolutely do nothing to save Tuomela there from getting more space into that chicane. So we'll have to wait and see, but again, the rules will say it all at the end.
And down the inside goes Tom Parker. He's looking for 14th position. This is on Seba Panasenko. In fact, it's 13th position he's looking for. He got himself already up into 14th. Panasenko just about able to hold on to that position for the time being, but Tom Parker is a man on a little bit of a mission.
Hang on a minute. So, it's saying Tuomela is still P3. So, wait, what has this happened? Has Roy Seifert just dropped down the order?
He might have done. We've got a replay of it. Let's see what happened to Roy Seifert. Maybe his return to the podium is going to have to wait. And here he goes. It looks like he's just overcooked this on throttle onto the curb.
Yep, oh no! Yeah,
bottomed out.
It's bottomed out. Yeah. Wow. Just after he got that move done.
Yeah, you could see the sparks flying, and it just sent him round, and he was lucky to avoid that barrier. But there you go then. This is somehow the championship challenge that's getting worse and worse for Roy Seifert. As I said, off of the podium since round 2 in Bahrain, where he won that race 1. It's then been 3 6th place finishes, 8th in Azerbaijan before that, and then 25th in race 2 of Australia. So at the end of the day, it hasn't actually been a great sort of second leg of the season for Roy Seifert.
It's not exactly been very lucky for him so far, but he's been showing some decent pace here today, and he'll still have the race too, to potentially get some decent points to his name. So it's definitely not over for him yet.
Here goes Tom Parker. He thinks about a move down the inside and Seba Panasenko, but I think thinks against it. Now he eventually goes that move. He sort of tempted Panasenko into a defense and then eventually sent the move. He gets the move as well. Panasenko might come back at him down the inside, but Parker does very well to sort of give half a little bit of room there, as Panasenko was just about not alongside him into that corner. So that's 13th for Tom Parker. I have to say, will probably be rather annoyed if the reverse grid number here turns out to be 14th or 15th. There is someone off of the racetrack on the right-hand side, and that is a move for the podium. It's Maxime Bilou, who gets into third position ahead of Noah Tuomela, who just cannot catch a break for being overtaken this afternoon.
Yeah, this time it's Bilou in P3, but he'll have to have his car stuck onto that tarmac for the next 4 laps until it is the finish. No, never say never. So you just got to keep your head cool and potentially just force yourself to not try too hard in these very tricky conditions.
Well, Maxime Bilou has sat on the podium so far this season twice, actually one in San Marino and one in Azerbaijan. Here is Magnus Ockenhaug trying to get himself up into reverse grid contention. As we've mentioned so far in this broadcast, he is a driver who was stuck looking for a full-time seat for quite a while in this season. He hasn't actually missed around because of it, but eventually has found one with Hut Performance Engineering, and how a reverse grid pole would reflect nicely on that. He's not able to make the move though. Maybe thinks about a dive bomb.
The battle of the Vikings. It's the 2 Norwegians fighting for a position for a potential reverse grid pole there.
Well, Scott Morris, this is for 20th position. It's on Dominic Schlabon. Schlabon makes a little bit of a mistake, and actually following into it is Scott Morris. 5.4 still at the top of the field, though gets Scott Mitchell-Mom. Almost loses control of the car, looking to get a position back on Van der Smissen, and Dan Hutt as well involved in this battle. Scott Mitchell-Mom not quite able to do anything about it, though, and has to stay in 7th position. Roy Seifert is again making up for lost time, down in 8th position. Mitchell-Mom not able to really find a way through. There's David Junt. He spun, and Luke Mitchell goes to the lead of the race.
Luke Mitchell takes the lead of the race at this point. That was not expected, but at the same time expected.
Here's what happens. David Junt over onto the curb. He's bottomed out as well.
And it's another bottoming out moment. That curb seems to be so treacherous. That exit curb with the car just bottoming out, and obviously at that point you might as well say goodbye to any sort of grip in these conditions. And this is Florian Haase just washing out, four-wheel drifting out, and okay, he's got no way of stopping it there, but actually manages to regain control, and whoever there is behind has done a great job of avoiding him.
Indeed, and here is Florian Haase regaining his control of the car. There's Dan Hutt down the inside on Noah Turamelo, who again, well, you know, I do actually have to feel quite bad for him because he's had the pace today, just unable to defend. There you go again, Van der Smissen now down the inside. Turamelo falls down yet another position into 6th. He had such a good first leg to the race. It's obviously something to do with, well, I would suspect something to do with how his tyres are reacting at this stage, because you have to be very hard.
He really seems to be struggling at this point. It's only 2 more laps to go, and he's just dropping like a fly with just position after position. He's now all the way down to P8.
Alex Laho, who is serving a race ban. I'm sure he won't want me to remind people, but serving a race ban for this round is in the YouTube chat. He says David is just pulling a Alex Laho and having a bit of a blown lead. But you say that 1.1 seconds is that gap. It was down to 9/10 of a second. There is still a possibility for David Junt to try and find something on this final lap.
Yeah, it's still just under that 1 second at this point, or just about going above and below it. So we'll have to wait and see. Mitchell could very well also make a mistake at this point. It's anyone's game, really. So you just has to try and keep that pressure on, and something might happen or not. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, as Mitchell will be rounding the final couple of corners now to start that final lap. This is the battle for 13th position. You can see Mateusz just 9/10 of a second ahead of Panasenko. It's really Ockenhout that is the main concern here for Panasenko. He needs to, well, I say they're both in reverse grid pole position, but contention, I should say, for pole position. So not too sure this will be fought particularly brutally.
In fairness, the higher up you are, the better your chances of getting into the reverse grid pole, or at least into a decent enough position, because you could very much get cut off there at 14th, and whoever is 15th will just have to start in 15th, which isn't ideal, of course. And there is a very aggressive move. There's contact. Magnus is now facing the wrong way, but manages to spin the car around wisely and avoids any further contact with cars eventually coming from behind.
But out of pole position, and through goes Dix, I should say. Here is what happened as we're on to the final lap of the race. It's Magnus Ockenhaug looked to the outside line, and I think went too aggressively.
And that's a squeeze, though, to be fair to him.
Yeah. But he was late. I don't think Panasenko saw him coming.
Not really, yeah. It's difficult to say from just a one-time view, but yeah, it's I'd say sort of a 50-50 there.
Well, we're on to the final lap of the race. It'd be nice to get a shot of Luke Mitchell, who should be about to finish the race in just a few moments' time. In fact, there he is at the top of your picture. This is Van der Smissen looking for 4th position on Dan Hutt. He's not quite able to find it just yes, as David Hunter says. John Dick P15 for the second race, 1 in a row. Last time he did this, he won. Well, we'll have a look to see if history repeats itself there, though 15th being picked twice would be quite the unlikely feat. We've just got about half a lap to go now. Luke Mitchell looks like he's going to win the race. We'll see if we can get a shot of him crossing the line in just a few moments' time. As it's 8 tenths of a second between the two of them, there might have been a slight mistake from Luke Mitchell. I'm not too sure. We'll wait and see. This battle still goes on. Seifert, Van der Smissen, Hutt and Mitchell. Luke Mitchell is about to win the race. There goes Seifert, last gasp attack for 6th position. He's not going to be able to get there. There is Luke Mitchell crossing the line. He's won the race. David Junt will feel like it was his to win, and to be honest with you, it probably was, but Luke Mitchell is going to make it yet another win in such an incredible season for him so far. Crossing the line as well is Junt, Bilu, Hutt, Van der Smissen, Mitchell, Marmer and Seifert, the top 7. Those sort of last few were very, very close together. And, well, sort of everyone else is filtering across the line now. This is a battle for 19th position between Morris and Hayek. Scott Morris not able to find that position. It will be Hayek who finishes in 20th position. But Jan, talking about this race, I mean, I think we all expected Luke Mitchell to win, but not quite like that.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a harder fought win for Luke Mitchell this time, and I'm sure he feels that way as well. And yeah, unfortunate for David Junt that bottoming out is certainly something that could happen to the best of us. Many times we're all racers and these things happen. As we now see a replay of Magnus Ockenhog, I think this is the final lap. Just goes wide. Oh, and tags one of the GPV Academy cars there.
Should mention as well, Noah Turamella actually had to go into the pits to change or to add in a couple of litres of fuel there, because he, well, in fact, no.
Oh no, that's.
So he anticipated using less fuel in the wet, and in the end has to pull off of the racetrack. That is why he was so slow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's that must hurt after such a fortunate start. Yeah, that's not a way you want to find out. Or not a way you want to lose a race.
Well, at least they've got some good fuel numbers for the next race. But anyway,
and they'll take this as a lesson going forwards. And they showed some good pace though.
Yeah, we should have the race results. As Jan, delegating the job to you once again.
So, our race winner for race 1 today, Luke Mitchell, P1, David Junt in P2, and Maxime Beaulieu rounding off the podium with Dan Hutt in P4, Justin Van der Smissen in P5, Scott Mitchell-Malm in P6, Roy Seifert in P7, Massimiliano Riboli in P8, with Lucas Thielen in P9, and Bradley Sellers in P10. Tom Parker in P11 with Mateusz Piszczan in P12, Seb Panasenko in P13, Jon Dix in 14th, Scott Sovic in P15, with Magnus Ockenhog in P16, Dominic Slabon in 17th, Patrick Magnusson in P18, with Scott Morris in P19, Jaroslav Hayek in P20. In P21, Florian Haase in 22nd, Jesse Lahtinen, Noah Tuomela in P23 after that pit stop with Mihailo Vicentievich in P24. Just catch up to the real numbers here. So yeah, Mihailo Vicentievich. Wait, no, I've gotten confused myself. So Bobby Vaquino, anyway, in P24th, according to these graphics, and Davide Zanini in P25, Louis Hartley in P27, Brandon Robert P28, Craig Patterson in P29, Luca Titano in 30th. With the final DNF here with Tommi Koivunen.
So we'll have a warm-up session following this, and then we'll get back for race 2. We'll see you in about 5 minutes' time. Welcome back, everybody, to GPVWC. We're here for race 2 of Formula Sprint 2 from Nürburgring in Germany. It does look markedly drier than it did in that first race. I'm Tom Dillon, back from being sick, of course, with Jan Granqvist alongside me. Whilst it looks markedly drier, certainly the track looks about as wet as it was before, but maybe we're going to see some drying up in this session, yeah.
Yeah, perhaps we'll have to wait and see. And you actually mentioned me coming back from being sick. I as well was having a bit of a cold the last time I commentated, but we're all good now. We're both healthy as ever, except for a slight bit of allergy, which is a bit irritating. But yeah, looking forward to this second race. Obviously, changeable conditions still matter, and yeah, we'll just have to see who can navigate this track without having too dodgy moments, as we've seen in race 1. A few people bottoming out on the curbs and doing some very easy mistakes for even the best of us to do.
Yes. And, you know, I was covering a karting event at the weekend, and it was pretty much raining all day long. It was tipping it down rain. I went out on the track in the morning and did a few laps, and it was, you know, it was wet and it was difficult, much like it was here, actually, sliding around all over the place, and not the ideal conditions. And then the point I'm trying to make is, once you get to that level of rain, even though towards the end of our day it started drying up, it was once you get to that point on the circuit, your lap times are always going to be slower, even if you get to dry conditions, because you will not get drying up completely from these conditions as they are right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. But with the GPV, the R Factor mod, it's an interesting one with how the track develops. I know from experience, from my personal racing on GPV, the dry line seems to appear very quickly, which it only takes roughly one lap, and then you'll just sort of have to try and adapt to how everyone else is driving the track, and then it very much becomes a sort of a challenge of who can keep it within that roughly sketched line of 30 different cars driving the same track.
Yes, the only time really it helps when people are going offline to kick that water away. And of course, the amount of water that these tyres are able to displace is simulated in the game, or simulation, or whatever you choose to call it. So it's not a massive difference in terms of real life, and there shouldn't be, again, too much of a difference between the sort of outside and inside lines either. But well, we'll get your grid for you in just a couple of moments time. I understand it was 11th that was called for the reverse grid pole.
Yes it is, and we have Tom Parker starting from pole this time out, with Bradley Sellers in second place, with Lucas Tylan in P3, with Massimiliano Urboli in P4, Roy Seifert in P5, Scott Mitchell-Malm in P6, with Justin Van der Smissen in P7, and Dan Hutt in P8. Maxime Beaulieu in P9, with David Yunt in P10, Luke Mitchell, our race winner from race 1, in P11, Mateusz Piszczan in P12. Stefan Panasenko in P13, with Aaron Dix in P14, Scott Sovic in P15, with Magnus Ockenhog in P16. Dominic Schlabon in P17, with Patrikur Magnusson in P18, with Scott Morris in P19, with Jaroslav Hayek in P20. Florian Hazer in P21, Yasser Latin in P22, Bobby Vakunov in P23, with Davide Zanini in P24. Noah Duamela in P25, with Louis Hartley in P26, Brandon Robert P27, Craig Patterson in P28, and Luca Titano in P29, with Dan Hayek running off the grid in P30.
Yep, Dan able to get back in. I'm actually very happy with him for jumping back in, because it's, you know, it's not easy to to have qualified so well, and then to sort of move yourself from the session, albeit not intentionally, and then all of a sudden you are faced with 30th and last. Now, Jan, I know these lights are very quick to go out, so I'll ask you for your lightning top 5 predictions, top 3 predictions. Okay, great.
All right. So this time out, Tom Parker, I've got for a definite winner, but then P2 and 3 is a bit of a good question. I'll put Roy Seifert for a P2 finish with Scott Mitchell-Mom in P3.
Not a terrible suggestion. I mean, to be fair, you were quite close in round 1. You probably should have got it in race 1, but whatever. We'll move on. Jorn Dix is taking the start from the pit lane by the looks of things in the red Ven car. We're all set to go then. It will be Dan Hayek taking to the final spot on the grid. We'll wait for the lights, albeit we won't be able to see them. Tom Parker on pole position, Bradley Sellers alongside. And it's lights out, and away we go. It's a jump start penalty for Scott Mitchell-Mom. All the way into turn 1. It's a good start from Tom Parker, who's able to get comfortably ahead of Bradley Sellers. On the outside line is Luca Thielin trying to attack. Down into turn 1. He's already got second position off of Bradley Sellers. Sellers able to come back at him on the brakes, though, and get himself up into second position. So a lot to unpack from the start of this race as a red Ven car just getting ahead of Massimiliano Raboli. That is Roy Seifert up into 4th position. We can now see Raboli being swamped by one of the VMS Sunedit's car. Whether he'll be able to hold on to that position or not, yet to see. It's Jakob van der Smissen, I think, that's attacking him. Raboli just about losing out that position. There's Mitchell-Mom, who's got a penalty, we know, trying to attack Raboli now, who has had a pretty terrible first couple of corners, but he's able to hold on to the position ahead of Scott Mitchell-Mom. And what a disappointment that penalty is for him, Jan.
Yeah, that's already my prediction down the drain, unfortunately, with that one. But yeah, not a start you wanna have to this race 2, but we'll have to wait and see. Just keep fighting on as we see all going very wide indeed, and there's a lot of cars stopped in the middle of the apex. This is very bad. Justin van der Smissen getting to rejoin the hairpin there, and yeah, it looks like a big moment from a whole heap of cars around the midfield.
Luke Mitchell looking to remove Matthews Pishkan, is able to get that position up into 6th. He goes trying to make it 2 from 2 in Germany in the wet, of course. And well, I believe it stopped raining. By the looks of things on our camera lenses, it has indeed stopped raining. Whether we'll get to a point where it's a little bit drier than it is right now, I'm not too sure, but the blue sky is starting to come out slightly. Here's Bradley Sellers. He was caught up in that issue, of course, and now looks for 10th position ahead of Noah Tuamelo, who I'm sure has put a couple of litres more of fuel in this weekend. Well, this race, actually. I don't know where the weekend came into it, but anyway.
I'm sorry, I accidentally deafened myself there when I was trying to cover my sneeze. So I've just lost a bit of what you said there, but I'm back now.
Talk about Bradley Sellers and how he's trying to make this move stick on Tuamelo. He won't be able to do so. Schlabon will look for more success going down the inside here, and he is able to do so. That being said, the 45 comes back at him quite aggressively. It's Tizano he's battling with, who of course crashed out of the first of our 2 races here this evening, but Schlabon gets himself into 22nd position. I said I don't think it's raining, at least as much as it was in the first race. Here is Matthews Pishkan, by the way. He's trying to get back up into 6th position on Luke Mitchell. He's not quite able to do so, and well, he's looking very racy indeed after a lightning start because of that incident.
Yeah, I'm looking actually from the spectators view that I have on this race currently, and it is indeed still raining, but it's potentially a bit lighter than we had in the first race. As I've noticed, Magnus Oggenhag has just had a moment and dropping down the order, and it seems he's lost his front wing, so not a great start again for the Fondens driver.
Pishkan loses a position to Scott Mitchell-Mom, but looks to go back down the inside, and he's being a bit of an entertainer over the last couple of races, Matthews Pishkan, and not quite able to get himself up into 7th position for the time being, but Florian Hasse is behind him. We'll see what he can do as he looks to now attack the Polish reading game driver.
It's Chan in a net P7 with Scott Mitchell-Mom, still having not served his penalty. Matos is just going to have to sit tight and try and keep his position as it stands, while also trying to navigate potentially Mitchell Mom in front of him.
Yes, Luke Mitchell now looking to attack Patrick Magnusson. He looks down the inside and he's going to get that position, I am sure. 6th position for Luke Mitchell, then 5th position it turns into, and the man who was so imperious in race 1 perhaps shouldn't have won it, but capitalised on the Davy Jones mistake, is already up into the top 5 in this race 2 and set to extend his championship lead by a little bit more than a handful at the moment. This is something that happened to Jorn Dix. This was his pit lane start, I think. We're actually trying to look at what happened into the hairpin. I think Roy Seifert was going down the inside.
Oh, that's just a bit too hot going into the hairpin.
And that was the sort of 5-car pileup we saw. And it was Raboli that was involved. I didn't even see that. And the RNG cars collecting. It was actually carnage. They seemed stuck together.
That's a very unfortunate spot to park your car in. That is the racing line into that corner, the apex. That's where they managed to create a bit of a blockage.
Look at this. He just got stuck. The 2 wheels got stuck together. They were actually clipped together.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. I think the phrase that comes to mind is you can't park there, sir.
Yeah, that's not ideal, that. I'm looking from David Yunt's perspective, same incident. Oh, that's very sort of a sketchy moment there, with cars trying to get out of the way and also find their way back onto the track. It's a bit of a mess, that first lap. Van der Smissen, just tagging someone into Schumacher S's.
Yeah, that was with Dan Hayek, I'm sure, because Dan started 30th. And obviously Justin fell down the order, so Dan getting tagged around. This is then Jesse Latinen. What happened to him? This looks like a bottoming out again, and I think that's exactly what happened. Thankfully, you don't slide off the racetrack with a great deal of force here, because you more sort of, I suppose, boat over the racetrack. Magnus Ockenhauer got himself into some trouble as well.
So yes, this is what I notice on my own. Magnus bottoming out, and yeah, that's his front wing gone. Exactly how you want to start your race.
Well, it's race ending, isn't it?
Oh yeah, pretty much.
Because you don't, yeah, I mean, we don't expect pit stops to happen here. If you come into the pits in this race, either it's gone from wet to dry, or you've had a significant, well, off-track moment. And we look at Seva Panasenko, yet to have a significant off-track moment. He's alongside Bradley Sellers, who had an off-track moment of his own, but 9th position beckons for Panasenko. Matthews Pishkan becoming a little bit of a trolley train here, albeit without the DRS. That 4 of 15, and I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed that Bradley Sellers hasn't flown away into the distance in this race. But now
I'm a bit confused. If I'm not mistaken, usually jump starts are penalised with a drive-through penalty in R-Factor 2 terms, so I'm wondering when Mitchell Mom is going to serve that. It's already lap 4, so I'm sure
have 5
should
laps.
be.
Yeah, he should have 5 laps.
So he's got 5 laps to serve it. Okay, I was thinking that it was 3 laps. That's my bad then.
No, it's okay. I would have thought it was 3 laps as well, but it clearly must have been 5 laps. But anyway. And Vincent, our producer, says he thinks the number set in game is quite high, so got a while to serve that at Bradley Sellers. But 5, not high. I apologise. Anyway, Sellers looks around the outside, and Pishkan has to defend. Defends very hard indeed, hard enough to keep Bradley Sellers at bay for the time being. Still down the inside goes Bradley Sellers, all the way off the wide racetrack goes Pishkan. He tries to cut back inside. He loses 2 positions though, and down to 10th.
He's gonna have to give that
well on the inside.
Position back. That was leaving the track and gaining an advantage if I've ever seen one.
Well, you know, he was forced wide.
Yeah. Okay. it's a difficult call. I won't say anything more than that.
Well, I won't be allowed to call that a difficult call. But anyway, the Dominion Fire is shining through. Bradley Sellers here is going to look to the inside. That being said, it gets worse for Pishkan here. Is under pressure now from Yun to sends a huge dive and is able to get 10th position off of Matthews Pishkan, who actually 9th position off of Matthews Pishkan, who falls down into 10th. Sellers now looking for that top 10 spot. I mean, Matthews is giving us a bit of an entertaining one here. He did hold on to his podium position that he got in Saudi Arabia with the first reading game driver in GPVWC to get a career ladder podium, first overall GPVWC podium since 2019 for the team. Robert Strachan got that podium in ITC Div 2. This is a replay of him going off the track, and well, it was actually quite controversial, him going off the track and gaining advantage. You see, I don't
very much. Yeah, he is warranted to have that space. So,
you know, I think that's fair, because I think he's, you know, he's had to go off the track, and there's not a lot of grip there anyway. You can't really slow it down without losing 5 positions or so.
Yeah, I'd say you're right there. I was more in the wrong with that call, but yeah, Matteo's very much a hard racer, and I know he is definitely quite fast. Well, from what we've seen so far. And there's Scott Mitchell serving this penalty. Yep, down in P18 now.
So just wanted to make the most of that. Now, myself, I would have been tempted to go in the first lap and then overall your fastest, because you come out into clean air, but obviously he knows best, and this won't do great for his average finishing position that was the highest, as I mentioned earlier, in the entire field, but obviously that goes down after a poor finish here, presumably for Scott Mitchell. Matthews under more pressure from Bradley Sellers, who still can't quite get past him. Defending hard is Matthews Pishkan on lap 6 of this race. Sellers looking to the inside, and still Matthews holds on, trying to pick up a double points finish for Reading Game. And I have to say, I have been impressed by him so far. He is definitely very, very fast. This is only his first season in the GPVWC, of course. He did very well in Academy. He, I believe, has a background, would you believe it, of Roblox racing, which is still mind-boggling to me that exists, but he obviously has gained a lot of pace from it.
I've heard Roblox racing has come a long way since when I was doing Roblox racing myself back in 2013 when I was a wee kid. So fair play to him though, he's shown his pace through what he's potentially learned in the Roblox world.
Well, Luke Mitchell doesn't strike me as a row racer himself. He's looking down the inside of Dan Hutt now, down into turn 1, looking for that 4th position. It's quite a ways back to Maxime Bilou, but that is a move that Mitchell has made quite a few times so far in this race, and there he goes, gets that position once more. And in a championship that has so much emphasis on these race 2s for the championship leader, with a little bit of a lottery actually on where you start, of course. This is a pretty good day for Luke Mitchell. Again, you need to be climbing through the field the best you can. There's a battle for second. It's between Bilou and Thailand. We switch back to the battle for 10th, for 9th, I should say. Vakanov is making it a battle for 10th with Sellers, but Sellers still trying to get past Pishkan here, who is making his Reading Game car very wide indeed. They're side by side for 2nd position in the race, and just about holding on is Bilou. He's
hard racing.
Bilou to the outside. That is a superb move, though he's off the track. Speak too soon, he's off the track, and that gives Luke Mitchell a podium position.
Just again, overcooked it going to the entry of the corner. He was 4-wheel sliding by the time he reached the corner, and there was no way to back out of that one. He just washed out wide. Here we see now another move potentially happening between this Bolu and Dan Hutt. Yes, they're going into the NGK chicane, and it looks like this Citroen has died off for the second, with Bolu still in front. But just a slight moment from Bolu, and he's dropping down the order, and he's under pressure right now.
And Ed Hunter comes up with a very good point, actually, that there's no grip on the outside of a banked hairpin. And he's only slightly off camber, that hairpin, but that is enough to allow the water to, play funny games. And if you get to that outside, you can find yourself with not a lot of grip at all, as the water sort of makes its way down that hairpin, doesn't it? I suppose. Here's a replay of what happened. This it is to Massimiliano Rivoli. Down into the hairpin, might be about to prove our points by the looks of things. And he doesn't this time. It's on corner, mid-corner.
Ooh. Yeah, wow.
That is a big hit. So up
I
into
think
the
it's
air.
just front wing.
Well, there you go. Out of the race as well for Massimiliano Rivoli. Alfa Zio got a nice championship lead though, so I don't think they'll be too concerned.
Scott Cervic, and just the snap to the other way, and that's him in the gravel trap.
Nice slap on then. He had an incident of his own. Through the right-hander, and the car just goes on him. I think he's okay, back onto the
It's
circuit.
just doing full send and finding his inner rallycross driver and himself go through the grass there. Managed to keep it clean, and Justin Van der Smissen. Ooh, that's very close between the drivers behind him.
There's Mr. Wopos in chat said, how did that front wing go off? Yeah, that is an R-Factor thing. I think just about everything on that car apart from the front wing should have broken. But anyway, as Massimiliano Rivoli is, oh dear, Morris into the wall and loses rear wing. Massimiliano Rivoli is trying to start a conversation about the need for DLC tracks in the league, which is a conversation we're having actually in the green room, weren't we, Jan? I think there has been a general sense of frustration with this track, and there's Ockenhaug losing the car himself. I'm not trying to come down either way on the argument, but I know my drivers have been complaining about it too. I mean, it is a conversation that I'm sure the drivers can raise. I'm sure the drivers probably at times have raised. But at the end of the day, it is unfortunate that sometimes the racing here can be slightly affected by what some drivers see as a difficult track surface to race on. But I suppose the rain has got a lot of bearing on that.
Yeah, from a driver's perspective as well, you've raced these tracks laser scanned on high-end simulators, and once you go on something that's just slightly off, where a braking point maybe comes in 20 meters later or even earlier, you just get put off. It's not a great feeling, but it's something that you can sort of get over, but it definitely brings up a conversation between the drivers.
So just about 7 laps to go in this race. 8.6 seconds is the gap for Tom Parker, who, as we expected, is running away with this race at the moment. Owen McGaugy weighs in, says we don't need DLC, but we do need quality tracks that weren't made in 2005. I mean, they are all fair points, but at the end of the day, we see... that was a stupid segue. My segue was good, but at the end of the day, we see a passable P5, but that's got nothing to do with the other ones. But anyway, it's... Oh dear. Let's talk about the race, Jan, because we've not got too long to go now, and we could talk about tracks all day long after this race. But there is an interesting battle still for 9th position.
Yeah, battle is cooking up, but look at those positions gained. There's some very interesting stats being showed up on our screen. Craig Patterson gained 15 positions since the start in his P13 right now. Patrekur Magnusson in P5, gaining 13 positions. That is potentially the drive of the day at the moment. But again, a lot of positions being gained and a lot of big losers as well. So yeah, just these conditions really bringing out those sorts of big moves in the table.
There goes Salas down the inside of Matthews Pishkan, and eventually gets the position off of that reading game car, though Matthews characteristically won't make it easy for himself. Will go down the inside, won't make it easy for Sellers, I should say. Now goes back down the inside. He's going to squeeze that car through and just about, I think, try and get the position back. It won't amount to much in the end, but Pishkan is driving so bravely and aggressively at the moment in the wet. He'll still try and attack Bradley Sellers for even daring to try and overtake him. Mateusz Pishkan, who clearly doesn't have the pace at the moment of Bradley Sellers, is still making it incredibly difficult for that Kings Racing car. Meanwhile, Luke Mitchell has got past Luca Thailand, to my knowledge, has made a bit of a mistake. And, well, Mitchell's been able to get past him.
Yeah, I just missed that, but I did see the position change happening in the timing table, but I completely missed how that happened. And yeah, so looking like another amazing day for Luke Mitchell. You can just tell, you can just sense the confidence behind the wheel of that Alfa Sierra. He's just consistently bringing out these results with no problems in sight. He's just, look at him, he's just driving like a machine. He's not put a foot wrong this race despite the harsh conditions, and look what that's brought him. He's P2 at the moment after winning race 1.
Well, actually, harsh conditions probably play more into the hands of the sort of top guys. That's Van der Smissen making a bit of a mistake. Once again, he's had a torrid race 2 here after that one incident, just sort of trying to trundle around at the back and make up what he can. But it's still not ideal. It's not working for Van der Smissen, which is unfortunate. Not an ideal round for him so far. Dan Hood's here, still trying to attack for 5th position. They have got Maxime Bieler in their sights for 4th, but at the moment, not really much they can do about it. We've got about 4 laps to go. Once Parker crosses the line, 9 seconds to the good, Tom Parker. And I can see producer Vincent Gutt's cursor hovering over Mateusz Pishkan. I think we've got some more fireworks of the reading game car. Oh, he says no. On my screen, anyway. Let's go back to it. It was a silly segue for myself, Jan, but anyway. Let's go talk about something completely different. How did you summarise Tom Parker's race?
I mean, I think a lot of people went in after seeing him being the reverse pole sitter. I think a lot of people already could sort of guess that he was going to bring in one hell of a performance. And I mean, here you see it. He's 10 seconds clear the rest of the grid. And I mean, he's just been driving. And yeah, I mean, he's got so much of a buffer that he could afford even just the biggest of moments and still sort of continue in a good position. So not that I'd want to see that, but yeah, he's definitely delivered a very solid performance after the unfortunate race 1 start that he had.
Whereas Seifert will look to attack Hartley down into the chicane. No doing for him. Scott Mitchell-Marr is trying to recover a points position for himself, but again, just having to bide his time here and wait for something to happen in front of him at the moment. Mitchell-Marr actually, after getting a drive-through penalty, recovering quite nicely back up to 16th position. A points finish might just add the icing on the cake. Second place in the championship, though, is the man that he's got his eyes set on down into turn 1. He's going to think about the move. Of course he will, Scott Mitchell-Marr. Nothing to lose. Down into turn 1 he goes. Brakes so late. And there's just a little bit of space for that Kings Racing car to squeeze on through. He has to go back around the outside, though, as holding on is Roy Seifert for the time being. And there you go. He's able to hold on to 15th position by the skin of his teeth.
2 drivers that should be way higher up the grid, but are fighting fiercely for the last points paying position in this race with only 4 more laps to go. It's going to be exciting to see how this will pan out.
Well, Roy Seifert, who wants to have his eyes set on Hartley just ahead of him, is having to keep one eye in those rear view mirrors, which obviously in our factor 2 actually quite good. Oh no, Mitchell-Marr straight on deep into the corner, thankfully avoids the grass and the gravel, but that will just put a dampener in his opportunity there for the time being. Bobby Vakanov is now trying to attack Mateusz Pishkan, who has had a very, very eventful race indeed. Pishkan makes a little bit of a mistake. Hasse is trying to attack Vakanov as well, and it's a bit more than a little bit of a mistake for Pishkan, who's going to lose 2 positions in 1 corner. He holds on to the second of those positions, actually into 11th, does very well to keep that car on the racetrack.
well held from all three of them. In fairness, they were all in that sort of small danger zone there.
And well, Pitchcan now looks in his mirrors and sees two very, very quick drivers and probably thinks, might we get to the line, 3 laps to go. My apologies, I thought it was going to switch to 14, but it won't. It's lap 13 of the race, so 3 laps for him to hold on to this points-paying position, with his 11th position at the moment. And well, in fact, he might even try and get back into 10th, and there's a huge dive bomb. Capitalizes on going deep for Boye Vakanov, not quite able to make the dive bomb stick, but he certainly had some guts to go for it in the first place. Not able to get through though. There's a battle between Panasenko and Sellers just ahead. Sellers stays behind Panasenko into 9th position, but this is just incredible racing in the midfield.
Absolutely, it's all cooking up now for the final few laps, and yeah, Vakanov making a slight misjudgment into turn 1, opening up that door for Pischan to sort of try and get his nose into, but now Pischan is under pressure from Florian Haase, who's behind him.
Down the inside goes Panasenko, or around the outside goes Sellers, I should say, and he almost loses the car, and my pictures froze to see if he had or not, and he is able to hold on to it, and there you go through the Schumacher S. Is now Bradley Sellers racing Seva Panasenko for 8th position of racing. About as hard as you like for this. Here he goes through the left-hander, the next of the chicanes, and Panasenko holding on for the time being. It looks so difficult out there. I was told by race director Chris Williamson, thank you for the input by the way, Chris, that it is actually still raining, apparently just a little bit lighter than it was before. We're on the penultimate lap of the race. These guys will have 2 when they cross the line, I should say, because obviously Parker is so far ahead of the field. That's plenty of opportunity for Sellers to get past here, but he'll want to make it stick as quickly as possible.
And you can just see just how close they stay behind their competitors, and it is tough to really know where you're supposed to place your car, considering you're really just left with a few options. And there you see a slight twitch going into turn 1 from Panasenko there, but actually doesn't even seem to open up any opportunities for Sellers here. But Sellers just eyeing out the situation really close behind Panasenko, almost touching the rear wing of his car, and it's just trying to find the grip, trying to potentially set up a move into one of the corners. We see a replay of Roy Seifert now. Something happening to him. He's dropped down all the way down to P24, so oh yes, it's the front wing that's gone after slight moment, just spinning out the rear wheels, and that's it for him, unfortunately. I think Bugatti Tano as well at P23 now. Slight twitch there, and yeah, the grip's gone. The grip's absolutely gone from the outside curbing and the AstroTurf. Just no grip to be found over there, and you just light up the rear tyres.
Here's David Junt, recovered to 7th position after obviously starting down the order after his race 1 antics. We're on lap 15 of the race, so this will be well, they'll have to have one more go around these guys, of course, as they're so far behind Tom Parker, who is right in the lead of this race by 12 seconds now. He's just had the pace of the field. He's been the class of the field. Here he is at his final tour around this 5-kilometer racetrack.
You know, he's actually built an even bigger gap now to Mitchell behind him. The gap was at about 10 seconds when we last checked, and it is now stretched to 12, almost 13 seconds. So yeah, Parker absolutely setting some lightning pace despite safely leading this race. And
down the inside of Pitch, spins around. Oh, he collects the King's Racing car as well, who's just about able to hold on to his car and point it in the right direction, Scott Mitchell-Mom. But that was a scary moment. I apologise to cut you off, Jan, but oh, there's spinning again!
Oh, there's more.
Oh, dearie me, Florian Haase has gone from hero to zero in the space of about 5 seconds.
Yeah, wow, that wasn't that wasn't an ideal way to start your final lap of the race there, unfortunately. But fortunately for Scott Mitchell-Mom, he's now actually gaining decent points after we were sort of debating whether he'll score any.
Well, I think we sort of accepted that he wouldn't be scoring any. After this, out into 11th is Pishkan once more, but Patterson will try and have one more look at him for this 11th position. Pishkan has held on so beautifully with his defensive driving and his aggressive driving, actually, throughout the course of this race. Tom Parker will be crossing the line momentarily to win the race. We're almost certain that might be Patterson's last opportunity past Pishkan. He isn't able to do it. Parker's crossed the line. He wins the race in the Nürburg ring after what could have been race 1. He comes back in race 2 and puts in the most dominant of lights to flag victories you will see. Luke Mitchell, by the way,
commanding win from him.
Position, commanding win. I think it indeed. Mitchell has recovered very well. This is the last chance for Craig Patterson to try and get past Matthews Pishkan. Here he goes, looking to the inside, perhaps into this final corner. Pishkan might just hold on for 11th position, and I have to say, for a man who said he was really struggling with the car and the track heading into this weekend, a double points finish for Matthews Pishkan is very impressive indeed. And to hold on to some of the names behind him that he has for so long, Matthews Pishkan, I have to say, a very good performance from one of my own drivers there. But everyone else crossing the line, filtering through. I just want to talk about Luke Mitchell for a second, Jan, because, you know, we'll all be talking about Tom Parker and winning by 12 seconds or so, but for Mitchell to get into second position at all is pretty impressive.
Yeah, like I was saying in the middle of the race, he just hasn't put a foot wrong, and that's absolutely how to go about it in these sorts of situations. It just shows, I mean, that's definitely a quality of a champion, and if anything, I think most people at this point already know he's definitely the favorite for winning this year. And actually, even more under the radar has gone Patrick Magnusson in P5, gained 13 positions, finished P5 in race 2.
Well, very well done to Patrick Magnusson. That has gone under the radar, and very well done to him. We'll get your race results in just a moment's time, or what we can get of them, because I know there's a few issues with the sim at the moment that in regard to the race results, and then we'll get some interviews going. I'm going to say Tom Parker is already there raring to go, but once they build, I'll let you take us through them. Yeah.
So, our race winner for race 2 today, Tom Parker in P1, with Luke Mitchell in P2 and Lucas Thylin rounding off the podium. Maxime Berlu in P4, Patrick Magnusson in P5, and Dan Hutt in P6, David Yunt in P7 with Seva Panasenko in P8, Bradley Sellers in P9 with Bobby Vakinov rounding off the top 10. Mateusz Pishkan in P11 with Craig Patterson P12, Scott Mitchell-Mom surviving with yet another points finish in P13, Louis Hartley in P14 with Florian Haase taking the final points, with Jaroslav Hayek in P16, Jörn Dix in P17, Dan Hayek in P18, Jesse Lahtinen 19th with Dominic Schlabon in P20. In P21 we have Noah Tuomela in 22nd, Davide Zanini, Luca Tizano in P23, Brandon Robert in 24th, Magnus Ockenhag in P25, who is indeed our final finisher of the day, with Roy Seifert, Justin Van der Snissen, Scott Morris, Scott Servic, Massimiliano Riboli rounding off the grid with the DNFs.
Well, thank you, Jan, for taking us through that. We'll very quickly get one of the drivers, the only person waiting for an interview at the moment, which is Tom Parker. And, well, actually on the screen as well, we should mention that the Spanish Grand Prix is the next one in June, 6th of June. I think we've got a couple of weeks summer break by that suggestion then. So going into our GPVWC summer break before we're back for the Spanish Grand Prix. Spring break, I should say. My apologies. Well, it's May, it's summer. Is my excuse for that. But anyway, naming things aside, Tom, back in FS2 for a bit. You reserving today. I mean, that win is mighty impressive.
Yeah, thanks. That was my heart. My heart. That's all I can say.
And well, 12 seconds looks like a very, very comfortable winning margin. But were there any moments we didn't see on stream though you thought maybe you've sort of got into the grass or something and you almost lost it?
I mean, apart from trying to kill myself at the final corner of the race after trying to celebrate, no, the only thing I was struggling with all race, I kept getting micro stutters in sector one, and obviously everyone knows how difficult that is when you get micro stutters in the wet. But thankfully I didn't spin. Thankfully I kept it on the road. But yeah, it was good. So thank you to Mikhail for giving me a seat. I'll let him know now that I can't do Spain because I forgot we had a 4-week break, and I'm actually in Spain, so I can't make that one. But yeah, it was really, really good and really enjoyed myself. A bit disappointed with race 1, but swings and roundabouts a silver lining. Obviously, getting pole in race 2 and taking the win. So, yeah, thank you to Mikhail. Thank you to Luke as well, giving me a bit of a hand. So, yeah, big happiness.
And well, if you are indeed going to be doing more FS2 races this season, obviously, I don't think you'll mind me saying that the championship is probably out of the grass with a 173-point head start for Luke Mitchell. But I'm sure more race wins in the plan. Yeah,
obviously race 1 would be ideal to get a few race wins. I am looking for a permanent seat if anyone is looking, so that would be helpful. But yeah, I think Luke's just about got a bit of a gap on me, so I won't quite get him, I don't think. But no, I mean, that's having a few races every day. I'm having a baby in October, so just maybe my last season really before I settle into parenthood. So it'd be nice to finish it off with some good fun, really. And today was definitely that.
And thank you very much for joining us, Tom. And hopefully we speak to you soon.
Cheers, thank you very much.
That was Tom Barker, winner of race 2. And next we'll chat to David Yunt. And David, welcome along to the broadcast. I mean, unfortunately, there's only one question that I'm going to be able to ask you first, which is race 1. What happened?
Hello. The curb happened, or I don't know, my aggressive, slight too much being aggro, or a bit too impatient, I guess, going on the curb, then sitting on it and doing kind of a Mick Schumacher without crashing. Sorry, Mick. And there was just enough to lose it to Luke when we had like the same pace. Luke had the slightly better top lap times, and I was kind of living off that gap since Noah was kind of putting a gap between us, and then it was back and forth. But I just fucked up for once. Still as a reserve, I wasn't sure if I would be on pace, even if I like rain. And then I was, the front row, and then I was finishing second. Is still a great result for the team. That's what they want to see. And the second race, well, chaos, of course. Sideways cars, I had to watch out, and then there was a car. There was chaos at the Dunlop, and somebody that spun decided I'm gonna spin it around now, and I was so lucky to go left and not lose my front wing. It was a bit dark blue, maybe felt a bit more, I don't know, loose, but in that regard I got lucky. And then I gave it my best. Seva was there, we fought a bit. I had to find a way past, and then I got him. And I tried to get to the back of the top 6, so it was a bit too late, and not enough pace to get closer. But I mean, not too shabby, a 2nd and 7th, and the points are, especially with seeing Craig got up to 12 in the second race, so priority 1 getting some good points again, even in the rain. So that's good. That's good. I mean, the win is gone, but that happens. We'll see it if there's another chance next time, whenever that is.
And Jan, have you got any questions for David?
Oh, really? I mean, yeah, again, must feel nice as a reserve hopping in, and you got a nice podium there, and even showed that you definitely had the potential there to win. So, I wish you the best of luck for any of the future races that you might attend.
Thank you.
Thank you, David, for joining us, and we'll speak to you soon.
Yep.
That was David Junt, and we're just about ready to round out the stream. Jan, final thoughts?
Yeah, that was a fun one this time around. A lot of stuff happening with the we got to see our first taste of proper rain, and also the first taste of the Nürburgring Grand Prix track, which we'll be seeing for the following weeks with the upper tiers of GPVWC.
Well, thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you in June for Spain. But other than that, we'll see you for our other series on Thursday this week, and then obviously Tuesday and Thursday next week. Good night.